My beautiful friends, welcome or welcome back to Freya's Forge. In today's video, we are going to talk about some conversations about conservation conversations. Not really sure exactly what we're going to settle on yet, but one of my besties and I had a conversation, and you can tell from the video that it's been a hairstyle ago or so. So it has been a minute before since we actually had this conversation, but I wanted to just pop on here, give it a little introduction, and hope that you will enjoy the conversation that we had. So if that's something you're interested in, stick around. And welcome back. So we're going to get into the video and I hope you enjoy it. Please do drop us a comment in the comment section if you have any questions about the conversation that we have, or if you have any suggestions about what animal you'd like us to talk about next.
Got it thing. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. We're good.
Okay, cool. So, hey, friends, welcome. For those of you who are just tuning into this wonderful series, thanks for coming and being with us tonight. And I want to send out a super duper special thank you to Dr. Kirsdarke here. We're going to talk a little bit about our different credentials and why we think we have anything at all to say on this topic. And believe me, this lady has a lot more on the topic in the science to talk about the animal spirit guides that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk a little bit about who we are, tell you why we are doing this, and our credentials or lack thereof in some cases. But we definitely thought this was a great topic that pagans need to be aware of. And we really thank you for coming on the journey with us. We're hoping to be able to be doing some more of these videos dedicated to specific animals going forward. We're just going to kind of see how it goes and see what you all think. So if there are any specific, as you're watching the video, you see kind of what we're talking about. If there's specific animal or animal groups that you're interested in us exploring in this little conservation conversation, just drop a comment down below and we'll look at those. We always welcome input from the viewers. So let's go ahead and get started. Dr. Kirsdarke, why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
Well, thank you so much, Lady Kelsey, for letting me join Freya's Forge and be able to talk about some topics that are pretty near and dear to my heart. And that has to do with certainly animal spirit guides, and specifically from some of the perspectives of animal ecology and conservation. That's kind of what I hope to bring to some of these conversations. I will start just by telling you that I am a practicing Wiccan. I am a Wiccan priestess, a second degree initiated Wiccan priestess, and founder of the Shadowwood Forge tradition in paganism. And from my little vantage point high on a ridge here in Eastern Kentucky, I am a child of Appalachia, although I have lived many other places on the East Coast. Very recently came home to Appalachia and home to the heart of what is one of the truly great biological diversity hotspots in the world. And I think a lot of times, not only people in Appalachia are not aware of that, but also people in other regions of the country are not aware of the breadth of animal and plant species that we have in the Appalachian Mountains. So it's a wonderful place to be a practicing pagan. It's a wonderful place to talk about animal conservation, and a great place to learn about spirit animal guides. So, one of the things that I have found, although there are some wonderful resources out there to let pagans begin to think about connecting with animal spirit guides and searching for and finding animal spirit guides, a lot of those resources do not provide a whole lot of information about the ecology and biology of these animals. And it's always been curious to me that if you want to work with the energy of a particular spirit animal guide, if you want to connect to that animal and tap into those energies, that you need to understand something about how those animals live, how they behave, where they're found, things like what their preferred diet is, what their preferred activity time is. Are they nocturnal? Are they daytime animals? Are they? So it's a good time to hopefully between the two of us to knit together the magical and spiritual characteristics of spirit animal guides with a little bit of a deeper dive into their ecology and then ultimately into their conservation status, because as we all know, that's an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for that introduction and kind of where you are. And we'll talk more about, how to meet and connect with animal spirit guides. If you want a little bit of a taste of it, up here somewhere on the screen, there will be a card that I'll link to a video that I have already done on just kind of an introduction to animal spirit guides. But as Dr. Kirsdarke says, it is very difficult to connect to that energy with a lot of the spiritual resources that are out there, because a lot of what you'll find, and this is absolutely 100% not to denigrate Ted Andrews' Animal Speak, because that is one of my favorite books. I love it. And we can talk about some of the distractions of it maybe, but a lot of what you'll find with books like that one is they're just a dictionary. They're just a list in a lot of cases, he has some other stuff in there too. But a lot of the books that you'll find are kind of just encyclopedic entry, dictionary definition entries, bird is this, it gives a little bit of its the season it's active and things like that, but it doesn't really deep dive into, like she was saying, the diet or the habitat that you're normally going to find them in. Are they solitary animals? Are they pack animals or tribe animals? Are they warm-blooded or cold-blooded? Where are you going to find them? Are they endangered? And maybe because they're endangered, they need more of us to connect to them spiritually, that sort of thing. So I think that that's one of the things that I think this series is going to be good for, is for us to talk about some of those lesser known, maybe less cool animals. I do mention in that other video that, when you do go hunting for your particular spirit guide, don't have the expectation of which one is supposed to be talking to you, because you'll overlook the truly powerful medicine of a particular insect or amphibian or reptile or fish or something in favor of the cool ones like hawk and wolf and things like that, which they're really cool. They are, and they're fun to work with. But there are other animals, and that is one of the things that we are wanting to focus on, are the animals that maybe have gotten less press, right?
Right. And it's kind of funny. Ecologists have a term for it. They kind of talk about showcase animals, kind of tongue in cheek, because they're animals that most of the populace is familiar with and are used a lot of time for publicity, for conservation efforts. So like panda bears and polar bears, and I apologize for the sound effects that will be fairly frequent from my residents, because like most pagans, not only do I love animals, I have quite a few of them. Our household, 6 dogs and 3 cats.
Yes.
And they're pretty vocal.
Yes. They are all lovely dogs, and I love each and every one of them, and I don't get to see them nearly as often as I would like to. But, and you guys, you're just going to have to live with it. Sorry. We're going to have dogs barking in the background. It's just a thing. So just
I apologize.
love it, or click out of the video and you'll miss out on some really cool talking. So there you go.
They have great things to bark at up here. We're very rural, so we have lots of animals around us, and our dogs have a whole lot to
yes.
to catch
they
their
have a lot
attention.
to add to the conversation, right? So, but
You know,
yeah.
I'm tickled at the fact that you're calling me Dr. Kirsdarke. I probably should explain why why that is in
Please
terms
do.
of yeah. So part of the reason that this is an important topic for me as a pagan and in my mundane life is that my background is in wildlife ecology. I'm trained aquatic ecologist and have a long tenure working in education in the areas of environmental science and wildlife ecology. So my bachelor's degree was in biology, my master's degree is in zoology, and my doctorate is in animal science with a concentration in animal physiology. So that's why Kelsey keeps calling me Dr. Kirsdarke.
Yes. Yes. And I
Kirsdarke.
will continue to until she tells me to stop. But
Yeah.
it is not tongue in cheek. She really does, in fact, have a PhD. So yeah. But anyway, so yeah, so the showcase animals, it's like you open up of the World Wildlife Federation, you'll see the panda bear, and
Yeah.
but let's talk, if you don't mind, just for everyone to realize that we know what we're talking about a little bit. Um, we both have spirit guides, animal spirit guides that we've worked with for a really, really long time. Um, and I know myself, have gotten a lot out of that relationship. I have a primary spirit guide that I've worked with for, holy guacamole, like 23 years.
Yeah.
Maybe closer to 25. I'd have to math. I can't math this late in the afternoon. Sorry, friends. But a quarter century. Oh my gosh. And I've worked with various other animals in addition to that one particular one. But I think it's a good idea to maybe talk a little bit about our journey on not only the ecologically side and the science side, but the spiritual side as well, because that's kind of what we're talking about here. So do you want to talk a little bit about yours?
I'd be happy to tell that story. I actually found my animal spirit guide before I found paganism. So thinking back now, we are probably we're getting close to 40 years.
Wow, that's
Uh,
awesome.
Crazy to think about. It's
Awesome.
kind of crazy. But I will tell you how this animal came to be my spirit animal. So there's a little bit of a story behind it. I was in my very early 20s at the University of Maine, and I was a graduate student, and at that time was a graduate student through a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service cooperative unit, which is present in some of the state universities around the U.S. and funds a lot of research that's done by graduate students. So I was very fortunate to have my research funded by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And the research that I was working on was on migratory patterns of Atlantic salmon. So Atlantic salmon are the East Coast species of salmon. They are different from the Pacific salmon that you find out west. They're different species. And they are native to the East Coast and to the rivers of the East Coast in the northern Appalachian range. So Maine is the top of the Appalachian mountain range, and the rivers in central Maine were home to just millions of these fish in historical times. Well, Atlantic salmon were then, when I was doing research on these rivers, and still are now today, on the endangered species list. They are protected by the Endangered Species Act. So their numbers have been dwindling for decades. And the research that I was doing was looking at migratory patterns of these animals because there was a lot of concern about the fact that we know that Atlantic salmon return from the ocean and migrate up into river systems to spawn.
Mm-hmm.
And if there are obstructions like dams, it's very difficult for these fish to get back to the spawning grounds. And a lot of times they become subject to predation, or they literally just don't spawn in areas that are appropriate. And so, there's no next generation, right, to follow. So the research was really concentrated on figuring out how many of the spawning adults, males and females, were able to get back up into the river reaches, the river systems. And I had gone up just across the Canadian line to work with a group of U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service biologists and also Canadian biologists, and we were working on the St. Croix River. And, I had come to Maine, and at this point to Canada, from East Tennessee. And my background had been in fisheries, but it had been all in warm water fisheries. So, I knew all about striped bass and largemouth and smallmouth and, sunfish. And these were beautiful warm water fish, but they were slimy. When you took them out of the water, slime's important. It's part of the immune system of fish, but they were slimy fish. And so the first time that I actually saw an Atlantic salmon was in a dam on the St. Croix River, where there was essentially an area that the adult fish would swim into on their upstream migration, and then they could be collected and they could be weighed and measured and had several pieces of biological information taken and then released upstream of the dam so that they could continue on with their migration. And I will never forget stepping out onto that metal catwalk that was over top of the holding area where these fish were. And there was an adult female Atlantic salmon, and we needed to take some measurements on her. And she was big. I mean, I was just astounded at how big this fish was. She was probably a full 40 pounds of fish. And I reached into the water to touch her. Of course, the water is extremely cold. And I reached into the water to touch her, expecting to feel the slimy fish that I was so well acquainted with from, the South. And this fish felt like velvet in the water when I touched her. And from that moment on, my spirit animal guide has been salmon. And as I have, all the years that I, of course, worked on that project and then worked on other fisheries projects on down the line much later, but all through the years, the energy of that initial contact has always stayed with me. And the more that I learned about Atlantic salmon, the more that I learned how those energies had become so important to me to be functional in my everyday life. Energies that are represented by this fish that migrates thousands of miles against almost impossible odds. So just the literal strength and perseverance and the whole attitude of never give up and just endurance, lots of energies that I have had to pull on throughout my life to get through lots and lots of different situations, both good and bad. And of course, in some of the older wisdom, salmon has always been a symbol of wisdom. So for me, I have been connected with that energy for a very, very long time. That's
awesome. That's awesome. And we've been talking, we're probably going to do just a dedicated video just to Atlantic salmon and the conservation efforts. And we'll talk more about the spiritual nature of that animal medicine as well. But thank you so much for sharing that, because I think I knew that maybe back here somewhere we talked about it very briefly, but knowing what I know about that makes so much sense. So much sense. Absolutely. So thank you for sharing that with us. Really appreciate it.
And yours, I believe, you have a story as well about yours.
I do. So I didn't have that kind of connection with mine from a natural perspective. Mine does not predate my exposure to paganism, but I started in paganism when I was like 12. So that would have been a really long time ago. But I went to a gathering in 1996. Okay. And had been a practicing pagan for years. This was my actual first gathering. And boy, did I pick a deep end to jump off of going to that first gathering. But one of the events, for those of you who are not familiar with pagan gatherings, a lot of them have workshops and events and rituals and things like that. Think of it as a big convention for a bunch of pagans. So you'll usually see a lot of nudity involved, a lot of drinking, and then some religion in around those edges. But but the one that I went to, there was a shaman who led a workshop on power animals, totem animals. We talked about, the different energies and things like that. And there was just this immediate click in my head. Like, I've been working with animals at some level, in some form or fashion, pretty much my whole life. I'm a longtime animal lover. When I was a little tiny person, we had a German Shepherd that used to babysit me whenever, because I wouldn't cry as an infant. So Junior would actually go into my parents' bedroom and like gently grab their wrist and say the baby's needing something. So I had connection with canines early on. And then most of the places that I've lived never allowed dogs. You could have a cat, but you couldn't have dogs. So I ended up kind of by default becoming a cat person. As I joke, I am an animal loving, people tolerating. So I will probably die trying to pet something I shouldn't. But but anyway, at that particular gathering, we had the workshop, and I just struck up a conversation with the shaman that led it. And we got to talking, and she was like, you know what? I've got some free time this afternoon. Are you interested in going on a journey? And I'm like, sure. Yeah, that'd be great. I don't know who my official power animal is, so I would love to find out who that is. And like I talk about in the video that I'll probably put a link down in the description as well. I went into it with expectations, even though she cautioned me very, very vociferously not to. And I caution people, they don't listen to me either. So I feel her pain. But because I'd been around cats for so long, I kind of thought that I would end up with a cat of some variety, whether it was going to be lion, tiger, puma, panther, all of whom are the same thing in a lot of ways. I'll leave that to the scientists, but Felius concolor is, anyway, but I figured a cat of some kind and ended up going through the journey, having cats kind of look at me going, yeah, we love you, but no, keep going. Including a female Florida panther sitting up in a tree, going, keep going, twitching her little tail. And so I ended up meeting up with the animal that showed themselves to me from all directions, kind of laid down next to me, put her head on my knee, and said, yep, I'm it. And so my power animal is the Arctic. And there are so many different species of wolves, and we'll talk more about the different types. And I know we're going to do especially a dedicated video to the Appalachian red wolf, because that is, if you haven't noticed, that's probably going to be our major focus, is animals in Appalachia. And I'm not from here, so if I just butchered that word, she can get me later. Don't come after me in the comments. But basically, Arctic wolf kind of showed up. And at the time, I was using the craft name Winter Wolf, which I thought was kind of funny since I hadn't really picked the animal at that time, but there was the name, and funny that. And so I used that crafting for a long time. And I don't know if you've heard this story, Kirsdarke, but when I took my second degree, one of the questions that I was asked is, do you want to change your name? And I said, well, I don't know if I need to right now, but let me meditate on it and I'll get back to you. So ritual ended, poof, your second degree, because it's that easy, right, Kirsdarke?
Yeah,
If
right,
you're second degree.
right.
Um, but so I had a dream overnight, and Wolf came to me and she said, "Yeah, you need an up level on the name." And so she gave me the name Kelshay. And what that means, and I don't know if we've ever had the conversation about what my name actually means, other than how to pronounce it and spell it right. But it comes from two different words: Shayla, who was the queen of the wolves, and Keld, which is an old English word for cold or fountain.
Hmm.
And she had given me that name before I realized what it meant. And so what it is it's the proper name for the winter wolf. So it's anyway. So I have worked with wolf, specifically with Arctic wolf, since 1996. I've worked with other species of wolves, gray wolf, red wolf, um, and timber wolves, but I keep coming back to the Arctic wolf. And I know when I was taking Kirsdarke's rune class, we did a meditation on the concept of philia, which is a Norse concept. And she can beat me later for not remembering right offhand which rune that goes along with. Um, but it basically is the concept of the fetch, or the animal spirit that helps you navigate the nine worlds. Am I right on that? Did I remember that right at least? um, so when we did that meditation, I realized that not only is Wolf my power animal, my animal spirit guide, but she is also my philia. So I think I came out of that meditation just not sobbing because just hadn't realized that level of connection.
Right.
And so I've spent a lot of time over the years reading books about wolves, not only from the spiritual sense, but also and I'll put a link to the description in the description because I cannot right off the top of my head remember the author, but of Wolves and Men. Have you read that one?
Haven't, no.
But a lot of just wolves in nature. My spouse laughs and he's like, if I lose you, I know where to find you, which is up at Bays Mountain listening to the wolves howl, because there's a pack of wolves at one of the state parks in the area. And I just go up there and listen, and they have like a feeding where they do a wolf howl where the park ranger will stand there and start them howling, and it's usually at dawn and at dusk. Have you been to that?
I have. I
Oh,
have.
and just kind of listening to them. And but one of the things where I will definitely link is a video. It's a little bit old now. It's what, 8 years old now?
I
Does
think
that
it's
sound
close to
about right?
9. No, yeah.
Um, but it's basically a video that is about the reintroduction of wolves to Yellowstone, and how just the small, tiny little pack that they brought back into the park, the ginormous, and I've got goosebumps right now just thinking about it. But the ginormous changes that it's made, not only to the ecosystem of the animals, but the geography and the terrain of Yellowstone, just by reintroducing wolves. So
It,
I'll definitely drop a link to that down in the description. And please go watch it and make sure you have got tissues handy because you're gonna cry.
yeah, it's you know, one of the prevailing themes in ecology is the theme of connectedness. And, interestingly enough, I think that's also a major theme in paganism.
Absolutely.
The fact
As it
that
should
not
be.
as it should be, not only the fact that we are all connected to each other, but that we are all connected to the environment around us.
Mhm.
And the the loss of certain species from an ecosystem can throw things so badly out of balance that it's the changes that happen are just almost unbelievable.
Yeah.
And so we have this theme of connectedness when we talk about our animal spirit guides, we have this theme of connection to the environment. And we also have another important theme in paganism, which is the theme of balance. So most practicing pagans, regardless of the tradition that you practice, understand the importance of balance.
Mm-hmm.
And in the natural world, animals are such a critical part of that ecosystem balance. And this video, How Wolves Change Rivers, is a video that I used for years in environmental science classes. And it is a video that really shows what happens, how the loss of a species can have such dramatic effect on shifting an ecosystem out of balance. You know.
Well, I know
So
that there was a lot of with the ranchers and stuff in the area, like, they're going to eat our cattle and they're going to eat this and they're, well, that's kind of why they were reintroduced, because hello, the entire brush was eaten down to nothing by the deer that had no natural predators.
that's right.
You
And
know,
probably
and
one of the things that we'll talk about in future videos are predator-prey relationships,
mhm.
and why sometimes the prey organisms can be in, just incredibly helpful spirit
Yeah,
guides.
absolutely.
Um,
And sometimes it's good if you work with both. You know, if
right.
you, especially if you're at a crossroads and you're not really sure which direction you need to be taking your relationship or your career or, you know, whatever. And you personally already connect to a particular animal, say wolf.
Right.
Maybe you should also maybe try to connect to deer, or, you know, one of the other one of the
Rabbit
prey animals,
or, you
or
know.
or one of the helper animals like raven, you know, because there is a big, huge spiritual connection. And maybe we could talk about that from an ecological standpoint. There is a big spiritual connection between wolves and ravens, where they watch out for each other. And the ravens get part of the dinner that the wolves catch for watching out for them. So um, it's just, it's probably not a surprise that my spousal unit's major power animal is Raven. I know you're shocked. I await your shocked face. But we didn't realize that until we went through that journey, which I thought was really funny. But so, do you have anything else you want to talk about the series? How we kind of hope we want to let it go? I know we're going to talk about different animals. We may do dedicated videos to specific animals like Atlantic salmon, like red wolf, and wolves in general, like box turtles and things like that. But
Yeah, we do want to, I think, try to, as much as possible, keep our focus on Appalachia again, because that's a region where we both are, and it's the region where there are so many different animal species to talk about. And it's a region where there are a lot of species that are in critical trouble. Of course,
absolutely,
species are in critical trouble all over the planet. You know, we know that. But I think that the focus in Appalachia will give us an opportunity to talk about some animals that people really don't understand very well and don't know a whole lot about. I mean, talking about possum, right? And it's possum, not opossum. Talking about possum,
right?
about skunk,
Mm.
you know, talk about salamanders. Most people don't know that the Appalachian Mountains are the #1 biological hotspot for salamanders in the world. We have more species of salamanders in the Appalachians than anywhere else in the world, including
Wow,
the tropical rainforest. So,
wow.
yeah, um, salamanders are at the heart of Appalachia. And there's also this accompanying issue in Appalachia because the region, as you well know, has been so devastated by resource extraction. And how do we find that balance of trying to maintain what is left
Mhm.
and recover and bring back what we can in the face of the damage that has occurred in Appalachia due to resource extraction? So we'll probably have some of those conversations because a lot of these animal populations have been really impacted by loss of habitat, not just from, well, not just from residential development, but literally from resource extraction in Appalachia. So, you know, I think that just going forward with the series, we have a hope. I think both of us that do that, as you are traveling your path in paganism, that you're going to have opportunities to meet and connect with spirit animal guides and those energies. And what we're hoping is to share with you, maybe pique your curiosity, pique your interest about some of these other lesser known species, like you mentioned, box turtle.
Yeah,
box turtles are pretty cool.
They are pretty cool. They're gorgeous animals too. I mean,
because these energies are really energies that can help you not just in your spiritual practice, but can help you in your mundane life. They can help you survive tough times and survive tough situations, and find the strength and the hope and the what you need to go on and to go forward. And so I think, Lady Kelshay, you will be talking a lot about those kinds of spiritual connections. Why? Okay, why should we connect spiritually to animals? What is the purpose for doing that? What do we gain? What do they gain? How can we use those connections to better our lives and the lives of those around us, and certainly better the situation for some of these animals? Yeah.
Well, and it goes back to the conversation that we were having, that the points that you brought up earlier, is just the connectedness that especially we as pagans, we talk about, and some of us talk a big game and don't actually walk the walk, like we're hoping to encourage you to actually do through this series. But we are supposed to be connected to the planet and be social justice warriors for the planet and for the animals and the environment, and just, because our ecosystem is so fragile, my friends. It is just so, it's sort of like, I was having a conversation with my mother-in-law earlier today, how a lot of us are like one paycheck away from homelessness, And so that kind of brings up this topic, why should we connect with animals on a spiritual level, is because it helps us learn the resiliency and the lessons that they have as natural flesh and blood animals. Yes, the spirit animal part of it is very important, especially to the pagan practice, but learning how to connect to the energy so that we can go into the world and say, hey, look, this is an animal that is on the brink of extinction because we as people are doing X. And maybe if we do a little bit of less X, then maybe we'll see this colony of bats flourish where they were threatened or something like that. So I think that is one of the reasons why I work with them, is just to kind of realize how we are, as the old chant says, we are the flow, we are the ebb, we are the weavers, we are the web. And it's important for us to feel the plucking on that web when things are out of balance. And connecting to energy of animals helps us feel the plucking on the web when things are out of balance.
Very true. And the truth of the matter is that our very survival actually depends on it.
Absolutely. 100%. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. This has been fun. I don't get to see Kirsdarke as much as I would like to in person. So hopefully this will give us a chance to actually have little chats about animals and paganism and stuff. And maybe she and I can actually expand from this if this series meets people's liking, that we can talk about just being practicing pagans in the Appalachian region, because there's a lot to be said about the energy of the area and the limestone deposits. And so this topic could grow like ripples on the pond, where we talk about different topics, and we'll just not even start with the concept of high strangeness in this area because
no.
boy, howdy, does it exist.
Oh boy, yeah. This
So
is the oldest mountain range in the world. There's ancient magic and ancient stirrings here. And
absolutely,
it's an interesting
absolutely.
place to live if you're a
So
pagan.
I think that this will be a good way for us to kind of explore the ecology and the spiritual nature of this area. And I hope y'all enjoy coming along with us on that journey.
Absolutely.
So we hope you come back. I'm not sure how often we will post on the series. That is a logistics discussion we have not yet had, but we wanted to get this video up and let y'all start cogitating on conversations about conservation, say that 5 times fast, and ecology and animals, and just how awesome it is to be alive in this era where we can film 2 states away. It's filming in 2 separate states about one particular topic that is near and dear to both of us. So come back and join us.
Yeah, about animals that are of particular interest to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Happy
Absolutely.
to hear from you. Yeah, what are you interested in?
Yeah. Yeah. Drop us a line down in the comments and let us know if there are particular animals that you're interested in, or if you have questions about anything we talked about on this video, or suggestions of resources or other videos that you've come across that you also cry over, like the how wolves change rivers. But definitely come back and talk to us.
We're looking forward to it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Have a good evening.
Happy hunting, everybody.
Happy hunting, but with cameras and
And I, right.